Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. How's everybody doing? You guys doing okay? Y'all doing okay? Early? Yeah, I am a little bit early. Thank you for noticing. I am a little bit early. Excellent insight. That is correct. Let's get the stream likes up to what are they? Yeah, let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. All right. Hello, hello. Sorry, 1 sec. Yeah, there we go. Carnage, thanks to the 5. Something felt off about Rox's final scene. Wouldn't be surprised if he is still alive in some capacity. Compared to others, this felt tame. You guys know that last chapter, my biggest thing that I hoped for this chapter was some sort of really powerful emotional send-off for Rox. We didn't get that. That is actually the topic of next week's video. I have a lot to say about it. I actually think that the way that this wrapped is really, really good in retrospect. I think that that was kind of the point. We're very used to getting One Piece characters' best moments being their last ones, right? That's a very, very common pattern throughout One Piece. If Oda is going to kill a character, he usually has their best scene planned for last. He didn't do that with Rox. I think that's very interesting. I think it says a lot. I think that because I reread the whole flashback, Rox's whole story, assuming that this is in fact the end. Maybe he comes back, but assuming that this is in fact the end, this is, I think, one of the darkest ways, maybe the darkest way that Oda has ever offed a character, precisely because of what Oda denies him at the end. So I think it's very interesting. Before I thought that I would hate this chapter if we didn't get that for Rox, but then on further reflection, I realized that it actually fits his story really well because I went back through his story. Fading Phase, thanks for being a Pirate King to your member for 8 months, man. I really appreciate the long time support. Hey, Morge, hope all is well. Wish we had more Dragon at times, Garp, but a lot of it was said with so little. I love how hateable Oda's making Garling to be. His death/defeat is going to be so damn satisfying. Yeah, Garling fucking sucks. Okay, so Dragon Garp. Let's piece that out. Dragon Garp, I think solid scene for Dragon and Garp actually, because I was really curious. I was like, is there going to be a long draw, like, is there going to be a deep philosophical conversation and stuff? But then in that exchange, I was like, this was right. The way that Oda did it right here, this fits. Like, he did it well. I love the way that Oda did it. It also solidifies certain things. I don't think Dragon and Garp are in contact today. Because Oda's kept us in the dark about Garp's feelings towards Dragon throughout all of this, right? Like Garp's feelings towards Dragon. I think that Garp respects everything Dragon is trying to do. I think he does. I think Garp doesn't respect people who go out and be pirates, like Luffy, Ace, etc. Because if you're going out to be a pirate, you're not shouldering any responsibility, right? Which is very interesting. It makes sense. Like Garp understands that. I bet Garp sees Dragon right now and can understand that if their positions were reversed, a younger version of Garp might have gone that same exact route. Right? Maybe that's reading too much into it, but I don't think that Garp has any critique at all for Dragon's decision. Because Garp can probably imagine that, yeah, if I joined the Marines and this was the first thing I saw, I would fucking hate my father for being part of the Marines. And I would fucking quit and leave and go try and change everything, right? Garp is in too deep. That's the reasoning that he gives to Sengoku, basically, which is he's in too deep. He cares now for the younger Marines. He's a part of this institution, and he wants it to be better for those who are below him, right? That's at least the reasoning that he seems to give. Satisfactory, not satisfactory. I'm tired of rehashing the Garp stuff, but I like that Dragon's view is there's nothing to debate with him and his father. I love that Dragon has come to that decision on his own. It's very black and white for him. And then for Garp, he knows there's nothing that he can say that would try and justify who he is to Dragon, right? He just accepts that Dragon's gone and walked a different path. I think the simple reason that Dragon dislikes Luffy and Ace choosing to be a pirate so much is that they don't stand for anything when they're choosing to be a pirate, right? Garp at least recognizes that Dragon he knows what Dragon did that got him arrested, And he knows what Dragon's gonna probably head out and do now, which is try and change the world and fix things, right? Garp, from his perspective, is also trying to fix things by being a Marine. I don't think Garp respects people like Ace, Luffy, Roger, who just go out and, fuck around being pirates and don't shoulder any responsibility. So I think that's interesting. 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 People are curious about the shirt, huh? Who's curious about this jersey? Who's curious about this jersey? You guys like this jersey? Interesting. Can I get some feedback in the chat if you like this jersey? You can't buy it. Not right now, but I'm just curious. You guys can't get it at the moment, but if we get a little bit of more That's a Fire jersey ready to get it, I can't tell you. I can't tell you at the moment. Can't tell you at the moment. If you like the jersey, then no, I'm not being a salesman. I'm not being a salesman. I'm just curious. I'm just curious who likes it. If you guys like it, it's interesting. Hey, maybe you don't like Zoro. Maybe you don't like Zoro. That's okay. That's okay. Hold on. Even if you don't like Zoro, I know there's nobody out there who's not a fan. Of the Soul King. There's nobody who's a Brook hater out there, right? There's no Brook haters in the world. The world would be a dark place if we had some Brook haters, huh? Just curious. Who's your favorite strat? Just put it out there. Don't hesitate. Good to know the people like the jerseys. All right, noted. Noted that people are a fan of the jerseys. You guys might get lucky in the near future. December's around the corner. Marco Cadillo, thanks for the 5. What's your overall rating on God Valley? Did it exceed your expectations, and what was the biggest surprise? What do you think will happen to Harold and Loki? God Valley exceeded my expectations in terms of emotional storytelling. I did not expect it to be this emotionally compelling. I think Rox's story, if we take the flashback as a whole, Rox is easily one of my favorite One Piece characters ever. He's also, to my surprise, my favorite out of the entire old generation. If I were to say my favorites out of the old generation, it used to be Roger number 1. I was disappointed seeing Roger, not even because of strength stuff. I was disappointed seeing Roger's character over the course of this flashback because it just felt a little bit cookie cutter because it feels like we've seen this type of character a lot before from Oda. Not cookie cutter. It's not cookie cutter. It just didn't feel like, it's hard to explain. Like, when a character is, like, Roger is introduced with so much mythos, so much legend, etc. around them in the first chapter, right? Then it's almost like the character carries more weight before you get to know them. Does that make sense? Even the Roger that we got to see in the Odin flashback, that still felt like the same Roger we saw in chapter 1, just more humanized a bit, but it still felt like it carried that same sort of weight and that same sort of legend. Now that we're seeing him in his younger days, I think it's still good to humanize the character. That could still go really well. I just don't think I cared for the angle that Oda went with it, which was... I just didn't find any... There were no moments... I think Oda often crafts moments that really, really make you feel, like, attached to a certain character or something like that, right? That make you really feel like, wow, this character is cool. I like this character for this reason or that reason, right? Like, for a lot of us, that was Rox's very first moment in the story. When he's, like, shit-talking Imu and Marijua, right? Like, you get so much out of Rox's character and what makes him feel distinct and really like nobody else within the first couple chapters of just getting to hear him and see him, right? I did not feel that for Roger over the course of this flashback. That was the one thing. It's not like he was the opposite of what we would have expected. We'd been told that he's kind of childish and everything like that as well. He's kind of goofy in ways, but there was just no moments that really attached me to Roger, if that makes sense, right? So how did I say this? I'm going too far. I'm meandering a little bit with my thoughts. So with the God Valley flashback, the main point I was saying was it's not to shit on Roger, right? I just say that before this flashback began, Roger was probably my favorite of the old era characters, and then post this flashback, I think Rox is my favorite of the old gen, then probably Whitebeard, I think then Garp, and then Roger, maybe. But it's all close. I like all of them. I really do like all of them. It made me like Big Mom and Kaido more. Rayleigh. I'd put Rayleigh up there. Rayleigh's probably... I think Rayleigh might be my second favorite of the old era. I think it was Rox, then Rayleigh, then Whitebeard. Gabon we didn't get that much out of, I'm surprised, in this flashback, because you would think we'd get more out of Gabon, because we're in Elbaf right now and it's Gabon's time. But Gabon, still like him a lot. Anyway, overall rating on God Valley, right? You asked me a very simple question. Did it exceed my expectations, and what was the biggest surprise? I think the biggest surprise was, overarching biggest surprise was how Rox was written as a character. Easily most compelling character of this flashback. Awesome protagonist, right? If you're saying the God Valley incident in and of itself, I'd say the biggest surprise was obviously that crazy sequence of events where Emu arrives, and then everybody's fighting Emu, and then it's actually Dommy Reversy Rox versus everybody. I guess the Dommy Reversy a lot of people saw coming, but Emu arriving and then everybody teaming up on Emu, that was like an insane just high, that period. So it surpassed expectations in terms of emotional storytelling, character writing, and I think some of the sequence of events and just like how Oda was able to spin the propaganda that we'd been fed before into the actuality and establishing that Emu really is the big, bad, true villain of this world, right? I think that was done very well. I would say, in retrospect, the finale of it could have been more, just a little bit more epic. Like, just show us this is the one fight, just show us. You like, show us more. This is the one fight, because Oda hyped this fight up, like, over 200 chapters ago, and it's the one that he's got to know this is the one that we really want to see more out of, you know? I posted on Twitter or whatever, it's like, that it's crazy that, like, holy shit, this battle sunk the whole island, right? We've never had a whole island destroyed in One Piece. That's never happened by just characters fighting. Remember, readers thought, myself included, that the reason God Valley was erased would have been Uranus, because we previously assumed that the only way that an island could be completely wiped off the map was Uranus. Like, that wasn't a question. None of us were saying that, oh, the battle must have been so great that it destroys the island. No, the battle was so great that it destroyed the island. It just didn't necessarily feel like that because we didn't get to see that much of it, right? So, like, if we'd seen more moments of, like you can see distant shots of, like, haki spewing out and stuff like that, but just seeing the impact of a lot of what's happening. Oda does show, like, the characters knocking each other back and forth across the island a lot, but they're not very large frame panels. Like, there's just not that much. He could have done... It's weird because I said before that he did a great job with it. He did in a vacuum, but considering the expectations around this fight, he could have done more. Elijah Petty, you know why Garp didn't free Ace? Lessons from Dragon? I think there... that could be arguable. Dragon might have been like, that one time I freed that guy, like my other son, right? He did go on to become the world's worst criminal. But I don't think that Garp gives a shit about that sort of thing. I think that Garp not freeing Ace, there was a bit more behind that, because Garp even said to Ace, like, it was a different situation. Because Garp even said to Ace, like, it doesn't matter now, because we've angered the King of the Seas, right? So the war is coming regardless. Like, that situation was about more than Ace. That situation was about, like, the Marines are going to war with the Whitebeard Pirates, and that's happening no matter what. I do think that Garp maybe could have freed Ace right there, though, and we don't know the fallout, but the fallout is much bigger than free. Like, Dragon at that point is just like a random rookie criminal. Ace represented something much bigger. I now don't know if that justifies, though, Garp not freeing Ace, so I need to think about that more. Bring that up to me again on Monday. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 2. Morge, let's hear about the sweater. Yeah, the sweater, not for sale for people right now, but it could be. Your voices matter. It could be. Glad that people like it. And again, if Zoro's not your guy, there are plenty of other Straw Hats. You wear the jersey that you want to wear, that best represents you. Robosk5, Garling did what people wanted ZKK to be, lol. Yeah, I'm just like, so would people have, because that was the crazy thing about ZKK, because it was just like, I did that, This is the thing that'll piss me off forever, all right? First, let's get the stream likes up to 50 for the sweater. First, let's get the stream likes up to 50. This is the thing that'll piss me off forever, which is that, yes, people, the raid didn't fail, yada, yada. Get that off. I will forever have to hold that, right? However, it's weird that there's a difference between people who at least followed the channel and knew, like, the raid fail theory and stuff, and then there's people that don't really know me, but ascribe all of the incorrect Wana theories to me. So they're like, yeah, Morge, the guy who was like, raid would fail, and ZKK, I'm like, why am I included in ZKK? That was the most baffling thing. I'm like, I put out a video arguing why ZKK is dumb, and why, like, oh my god. The whole executioner meme of, like, if Zoro kills Kaido after Luffy beats Kaido, that's not, like, an impressive feat for Zoro. That just puts him on par with Executioner number 2 from Roger's death in Chapter 1, right? That whole thing was started from that video. I felt proud that I'd gotten that ball rolling, that it's stupid that Zoro fans actually want him to play the role of, like, Executioner number 2 from Chapter 1. That baffles me forever, that people will be like, oh, Morge was also responsible for ZKK. I never thought ZKK made any sense. I also feel like it straight up didn't make sense from a Zoro fan's perspective, because either you were arguing that Zoro would be the one to defeat and kill Kaido, which I think Zoro fans didn't even themselves believe would happen. They all thought it would be Luffy. Or you thought that Luffy would defeat Kaido, and then Zoro just, like, beheads him afterwards, which is fucking lame, as we saw here with Garling. Like, Garling was what people wanted ZKK to be here, and nobody respects what Garling did this chapter. Anyway, just a minor grievance. Maybe a leftover grievance. Monkey D. Dragon with the ... Classic. Maybe if it was a Sanji one, don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. Sanji version, we got everything. Julian Criswell, thanks for the 2. Voice of all things is empathy, Luffy feels for all. Is voice of all things empathy? Yeah, maybe it could be that simple. Maybe it's that simple. That's interesting. I never thought about that. Malik, thanks for the 2. Think Harold's fallen into the sunk cost fallacy? Okay, here's my take on Harold. Harold is turning out to be a very interesting character. Do I like him? No. It's complicated, though. I respect Harold in a weird way. He's, on the one hand, he's really dumb. He's very stupid. And he has no excuse because he's like 200 years old or some shit, right? Like, these are literal children, like rocks and stuff, that are having to explain to him that the world government is bad. You have 200 years of living in a world underneath the world government. How has he not figured this out already? I don't know. But Harold is stupid. However, I can see him falling into the sunk cost fallacy, but it's not, I don't think he views it as a sunk cost. I think he views it as, like, because he made such a sacrifice for his friend, now I guess it's kind of like the sunk cost fallacy, but I think the sunk cost fallacy, it tends to more so apply when you feel like you might not be doing the right thing anymore, but you've already put so much into it that now you have to commit, right? Whereas in this case, I don't think that Harold feels like he's not doing the correct thing by trying to give his all to get Elbaf accepted by the world government. I think he still believes that's the right path, but now he's just even more driven to accomplish it because he's like, I gave up so much to do this. I have to keep pushing even harder, right? So it's a little bit of sunk cost fallacy, but it's not like he thinks that this is the incorrect path in the first place. Does that make sense? It's extra motivation, I guess. JP, thanks for the 10. I really like how even though Marines don't sign up to be like a family that protect each other like some pirates, Garp acts like a pirate captain wanting to protect his crew. Yeah, I mean, that's the Hachinosu raid in a nutshell, right? That's Garp rolling up with his crew. Sir Wins a lot, thanks for the 7. Honestly, Harold is one of the best written characters for me. Can you do a video on him in the future? Rox was smiling, zoom in and change the angle. Rox was smiling? Let me see. I can't pull up panels on stream, but that's good to know. I think that Harold, so there's 2 videos that kind of came out of this chapter. I think Harold just became one of the most fascinating characters in One Piece, precisely because, like, lots of times with these, like, these great flashback characters, right, we are meant to, they're almost, like, grandiose paragons of virtue in a way, right? Like Otohime, Tom, Saul, Hero Look, like all of these characters, Corazon, right? You can't say anything bad about them. Harold is fucked up, and his story so far has been a lot about him fucking up, and trying to atone. That was his story from the very beginning. I actually really like Harold as a character. It's complicated. I really do like him as a character. It's just, it's, how do I say? Sorry, not like him as a character. I really do appreciate him as a character, and I think by the time all is said and done, he'll have one of the most interesting stories in One Piece, much like Rox himself. I love what Oda's doing with both of these characters, and the two characters are, their friendship and the whole concept of their friendship is really beautiful by Oda, because the themes that he's pulling out from their whole dynamic is stuff that we haven't seen in One Piece before. I'm very excited to do that video. There's a video I did on just Rox from today's chapter, and then there's a bunch of notes I have on a video for Rox and Harold that's coming up, because the writing around those two together is just fantastic. Harold is just harder to like than Rox due to his decision making, but he is also a more flawed character, I think, than Rox in the end. And that's saying a lot, because, you know, Rox was he started off seeming like kind of a controversial character. Let me see. Did he get to smile? I don't think that's a smile. I think Oda did not. I think if Oda wanted him to be able to come out with a smile, he would have done so. I think everything about Rox's end is very deliberate. I think he's not supposed to go out with the classic D smile. Elijah Petty, good to see you. Thanks for the 2. About Roger, this is Loki's flashback, not Shanks. About Roger, this is Loki's flashback, not Shanks. Yeah, but I think at the same time, this was meant to be a story that covers all of them. It's a story that covers, like the narrator even says multiple times, it's a story about Rox first and foremost, but also Roger and Garp, and the narrator reiterates that several times. And just the general framing of the entire story, it's like the 3 factions are the Rox pirates. The 3 factions arriving at God Valley are the Rox pirates, Roger pirates, and Garp. They're the 3 that are focused on with the whole Emu situation, then the whole Emu situation turns into their battle and everything. This really was all 3 of their stories, with Rox just being the star of the show. The thing is that even if we want to say, well, this wasn't Roger's time or whatever to really get as much focus as he could, there likely, as far as we know, won't be another time, right? This was the flashback that covered the most important battle of Roger, Garp, and Rox's life. This was the most important battle of Roger's life. There's nothing else after this. That maybe there'll be something else, but as far as we know, there's nothing to suggest that there's nothing bigger than this, nothing more important than this to come for Roger, you know? Carnage, thanks to the 2. Not sure about Sengoku saying he'd turn a blind eye. Dude, I don't fucking know with Sengoku, man. Weirdest character in the series. It's like, because there's so many things that you look at and it's like, did Sengoku okay this, or was this just the Celestial Dragons pushing some shit through? Here's what I would love to see down the line. I would love to see if there's clarification. Like, I think we need some Sengoku shit, because if Oda could clarify down the line that there were, in fact, a lot of moments in the story where the Celestial Dragons pushed to make something really bad happen or something, and then Sengoku pushed back against it, right? And there, let's say hypothetically, there were many instances where there might have been like another genocide or an Ahara or something, and Sengoku was kind of like the buffer that stops that from happening, but then also goes along with their wishes in some cases. Does that make sense? If that could be established, where it's kind of like we see the moments that Sengoku basically, like the Celestial Dragons got their way, but then we don't get to see all the moments where Sengoku maybe kept the Marines on a more righteous path, then I think that would do a lot, because it supports the idea that Sengoku was this, how to explain? When we exit the time skip, right? So when we exit the time skip, it's an interesting situation because, start the time skip. It's an interesting situation because the world is all kind of in a balance, right? Like the 4 Yonko, they're all balanced or whatever, but then obviously Whitebeard falls, so that's thrown out of balance. And then the Marines are balanced in the sense that, like, you look at the Marines and Sengoku is at the helm, and Sengoku is this sort of like morally neutral character. He's not like evil, like absolute justice, all of that stuff like a Kainu, but he's also not like this radical maverick, like always just do the right thing kind of guy like Garp, right? He's somewhere in between. And when we exit, so we kind of remove Sengoku from the situation, right? Sengoku steps down as fleet admiral. And then the Marines are at a crossroads where it can go down the Akainu path. And the Akainu path is established to be one that's like really bad. That's like actual absolute justice bullshit. Like, you know, you're recruiting people like Green Bull, stuff like that, right? Like it's established that's like the really bad path. And then the better option is Aokiji. And Aokiji might have been an even more of a step forward, morally speaking, than Sengoku or something, right? So what we get instead is Akainu wins, right? And we haven't seen that much of this in action. Oda hasn't shown it this much, but what he's had characters state frequently is that basically that the Marines have become the Marines have become a lot worse under Akainu than Sengoku, right? So you could argue that Sengoku basically was able to kind of steer the Marines away potentially from being as bad as maybe they could have. But we don't actually see that in action, right? I would love for Oda to be able to establish a bit more like what actually is Sengoku's influence. Was he the kind of character that kind of like basically was the buffer guy that kind of like curbed some of the Celestial Dragon's worser desires and like mandates for the Marines, but at the same time gave some leeway to some of their stuff because he's not gonna try and fight back and destroy the whole system or something like that. Like, we need some more context, and I don't know. At the moment, I have no defense for him. I think he sucks. But I've also learned definitely over the course of this God Valley flashback that it is really important. Like, the biggest thing that we've learned over the God Valley flashback is what? It's really important to let Oda take the time to tell the stories of these characters that he wants to tell. Because how many preconceived notions about characters have been proven wrong over the course of this flashback alone? Let's start with Rox, right? I don't need to go down the whole list, but Rox is the fucking poster child. We all thought, myself included, I was probably one of the forefront people arguing this, that like Rox was the predecessor of Blackbeard, must have been evil, yada, yada, yada. Roger and Garp had to fight, stop, defeat him, yada, yada. And then over the course of the flashback, Rox is a fucking amazing friend, one of the most loyal friends in One Piece, amazing father, husband, very loving man, very honorable man. All of this, like, he's actually a relatively admirable figure that got a bad rep and ended up being turned into a demon and everything like that. But we learned the lies around him, right? Garp, the supposed Celestial Dragon bootlicker, we learned over the course of this flashback the absolute opposite. He will fuck up Celestial Dragons, doesn't matter who, even if it's Emu, even if it's a Gorosei or whatever, he will do that the moment he sees them doing something wrong, right? Dragon, we got so much insight into this character because people have been critical in the past, myself included, about Dragon in terms of like, why does the guy not do anything, yada yada. We're like, no, Dragon will do stuff the moment he sees something wrong if it's happening in front of his eyes. He's one of the most morally resolute characters in One Piece. If he's been taking his time building up his plans in the modern day, then that means that we know now that it's because he's realized that he has to do it that way if he wants to succeed. So Garling, same thing, champion of God Valley, fucking joke, right? So with Sengoku, maybe there is more to the character, right? Like, let's be fair. Let's not judge too prematurely. But I also don't know if Oda's ever going to go delve deep into Sengoku's character or anything, or if what you see is what you get. Meek, thanks for the 10. Bro Morge, the prediction I made for 1166, I just recorded the chapter review, and you were the person who won the chapter predictions for the week. So Meek correctly predicted the horns being torn off. I was so shocked reading the spoilers this week. It was the first thing that came to mind, LMAO. How'd you like the chapter? I really liked the chapter. I thought it's a very good chapter. I liked the Rox Loki scene a lot. I liked the Dragon Garp scene. I loved the Herald scene. Calrodin, thanks for the 20. The lightning strike, the cutaway from Rox's execution. We know Scopper meets Sommers. Feels like we aren't fully done with God Valley. I don't know. I feel like we are done with God Valley. I would love if there's like a flashback that covers what we missed or something like that. But I feel like we might be done. I'm not going to hold out for it. Carson Cock, thanks for the 2. In my opinion, God Valley foreshadows the destruction of the Red Line. Advance conquers haki. Yeah, maybe. All right, hold on. Hold on, hold on. Meek says, also, how on earth does Rox not know Nika? I'm happy Rox doesn't know Nika. I'm tired of this, like, this is when Oda's gaslighting. All right, this is Oda's gaslighting. Prior to chapter 1018 or whatever the fuck, whenever Who's Who brought that shit up, not a single fucking soul in One Piece had ever mentioned Nika. The only time a sun god was even mentioned was, like, in Skypiea, along with, like, a shit ton of other gods, okay? Oda hadn't been planting this a whole bunch in the story. I'm not saying it's a retcon. I'm just saying that, like, this wasn't something that people were broadly treated as being aware of, right? But then after Wano, suddenly everybody and their fucking mother is just talking about Nika. Like, it's a constant. It's just like every island you go to, it's like, Body, you love Nika. Oh, Kuba. Oh, in fact, the entire Buccaneer clan. Oh, fucking Dory and Brogy, the giants who we already met. Oimo and Kashi, all of them, they all love Nika. That's all they talk about. That's what their whole culture is about. Oh, shit. We actually spent all of Little Garden, where they fucking talked about their god Elbaf 50 different times, never once mentioned the sun god Nika. But, you know, now that we're in Elbaf, turns out, fuck god Elbaf. Never existed. It's all Nika. Every giant apparently wants to be Nika. Everybody apparently is obsessed with this character, or I mean this mythological figure. Everywhere you go, post Wano. I'm glad Rox fucking doesn't know who this being is, okay? Because I'm done being gaslit by Oda that, like, fucking 40% of the world secretly was aware of this character or something like that, okay? Or not character, you know what I mean. I'm done. I'm glad Rox was like, who? Because that's exactly how we all would have felt prior to chapter 1000. It's like, the fuck are you even talking about? You know, this wasn't common knowledge of the One Piece world. Job 20 thinks of 2. Harold succeeded yet failed at the same time. Harold succeeds yet fails at the same time. Yeah, I think Harold's story is going to be... I'm very, very curious what happens. Because Imu's punishing Harold. Imu says that he's... the Dommy Reversy was to punish Harold for something a mistake that he made, right? What's the mistake? What does Harold promise to do and then doesn't follow through on? I'm really curious. Also, low-key, is Harold the strongest character in the world now besides Imu? I feel like he might be, right? Let's get stream likes up to 100 real quick. I feel like low-key Harold might be, which isn't absurd because, again, Harold was the strong... It's so weird thinking that, like, on the one hand, it's weird to think that, oh shit, is Harold the strongest One Piece character in the world right now, outside of Imu? Because Harold's a relatively new character to our knowledge. But then, in the context of the One Piece world in general, it's like Harold was the strongest in the world for like 100 years, right? We don't count Imu, reiterating that. Harold was the strongest in the world for like 100 years. Like, he was basically the world's Whitebeard, but for an unprecedented stretch, right? And then Rox came along, and finally Harold had an equal for like a decade, which is like a blip in giant time or something. And now Rox is dead, so it's probably just back to Harold, right? So it's kind of funny. You know? It's just like, fucking Harold is the world's strongest character, probably. I don't know. I don't know how you weight whatever. That's just funny to think about, but at the same time, in the context of the One Piece world, that must feel like the most natural thing to them, because everybody's like, yeah, Harold was kind of just that dude for for our generation, and then our grandfathers, or like our father's generation, and then our grandfather's generation, and our great-great-grandfather's generation. He's kind of just been the strongest for like a long time. Harold Loki, the LeBron of One Piece, right? Giant genes. Carnage, thanks for the 5. What do you think about Galila? Who will awaken them now that Harold is dead? Also excited to see Loki's reaction to Luffy being Nika. Yeah, Loki's reaction is going to be very interesting. Loki claims that he himself is Nika, but that's obviously incorrect, so I don't know. Galila, I feel like a lot of people talked about Moria potentially using their corpses or something. I don't know why Galila is so important, unless it's just for foot soldiers, which very well could be the case, you know? King G, thanks for the 2. I don't think Harold was Dommied, he got betrayed. But he looks like he's Dommied in that panel. Also, let's get stream likes up to 100 real quick. Let's get stream likes up to 100 because we're almost there. Sean Easton, thanks for the 5. With how Rox doesn't know Nika, it's funny how the one Beast Pirate who knew about Nika faced the one Straw Hat that would bring up that topic. Racism. That is true. That is actually really, really funny. Oda's got to make the coincidences happen. Yeah. Harold's blunder is that he's a pacifist and Emu cannot change his mind. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, like maybe that would be cool. I would like that. If Emu demands that Harold fight or something like that, and then Harold refuses to do so for the sake of peace. I would love that. The tricky thing is that Harold was okay with fighting Rox, but I don't know. Maybe Emu demands that Harold fight some other nation or something like that. I don't know. Elijah Petty, thanks a lot. Man, the Garland family has really done Loki bad. Yeah. What the fuck? Now that I'm thinking about it, they killed his idol. They fucking... Shanks did some shit to Loki as far as we know. Shamrock is fucking torturing him right now. That's interesting. Nick's Queen, thanks for the 5. You once said the silhouette in 490 would never be explained, but it's Emu riding Saturn. The side-by-side with 1164 is identical. Left and right are legs. I know the silhouette you're talking about from Thriller Bark. I don't agree that it's Emu and Saturn. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do genuinely think that that's just like an offhand, like Oda just spooky type vibe things. Like, who knows what's out there in the Florian Triangle? I don't think it's supposed to be narratively relevant, personally, but I might be wrong. Hey, Hill, thanks for the 5. Imagine watching/reading chronologically, maybe an even better read/watch. Oh, you're saying just like starting from God Valley and then moving on? I don't think so. I think a lot of things in God Valley have more meaning when we already know a lot about the characters and the lore beforehand. But that is an interesting idea. JP, thanks for the 10. Ohara's Buster Call was done under the authority of Admiral Sengoku. Dude is complicit. Real talk though, Sengoku's comment in this chapter about going to the top for change explains a lot, but is Fleet Admiral not high enough? I don't know, man. Sengoku is 100% complicit. Sengoku is very, very, very much complicit. Sengoku is, he's got a lot of answering to do. I guess Sengoku's not, like, again, the only way that Oda could kind of mitigate this would be if, he establishes that there are a lot of similar situations that Sengoku was able to sort of curb or stop the Marines from doing or something that the Celestial Dragons wanted. But he's, again, if he's established to be a sort of buffer figure where he's able to talk them down or stop or take a stand against several things, but then also some things just have to happen and he can't stop everything. I don't know. That's like the only way that could mitigate it and make Sengoku more morally gray or whatever, but it's not, I don't know, not looking good. Sir wins a lot. Thanks a lot. Thought on Loki and Rox's interaction. Loki has his will. I've got a lot coming out on that in this Tuesday's video. I think this Tuesday's video is, personally, I think it's a really good video. It's a full analysis video on Rox, and it also covers Blackbeard and Loki, which are his two would-be successors, and some of the significance of how Rox's story ended and how that affects those two in very different ways. I thought the Rox and Loki scene was great because it's a sharp contrast to their first scene. First scene was Rox just beating him because he thought it's funny or whatever, right? Because that's just Rox, right? This scene really, and that fit our initial perception of Rox, which is that Rox is just this really bad guy or whatever, right? This scene showed Rox and Loki with just Rox just being his actual, just human, genuine self. The Rox that we've come to know over the course of the flashback, because we were robbed of like an actual Rox emotional final scene where, like, you know, most One Piece characters get. But this scene put in a little bit later where it's just Loki reflecting on a simple, normal moment that he had with Rox, I think did hammer in just who we lost. Because you see so many layers to Rox as a character. You see that, yeah, he wants to become king of the world, but he also values, he's very understanding. He's loyal to his friend. He values love. He has understanding of the importance of love, right? And you see his charisma and you see his determination and his enthusiasm, and he's like, I'm just going to keep trying. I'm going to keep coming back 100 times if I need to, 200 times if I need to. He was just this very charismatic figure where even if his goal was very ambitious and he was rough around the edges and did, you know, some not great things, there was a very genuine and earnest person underneath there that was on this like really heartfelt journey. And I don't know, I felt for Loki that Loki lost the one character that he actually looked up to in this world. And it just reminded you, it was a great, because we, for the last 2-3 chapters, we've been seeing Rox as this sort of like shell of himself, this Dommy Reversy monster that's running around crying and everything. I thought it was really beautiful for Oda to just cut back after Rox's death to just remind us of who he normally was and what we just lost. I really, really like that. GDN, thanks for the 5. Where was LARP when Sengoku ordered the mass execution of pregnant women? LARP is just too weak to stop Buddha the goat. I will add that I think it's a really bad look that Garp fucked up Sengoku, it looks like. While Garp was fucking already hospitalized. I don't think that's a good look for Sengoku. I think the narrator already fucked over Sengoku by establishing that he wasn't strong enough to be included at God Valley. The narrator literally saying that, yeah, strongest people are all here on God Valley. If you're not here, it's a wrap, right? Yeah, I think that LARP is just too weak to stop Buddha the Goat. I think the mass execution of pregnant women is really bad. I went back and reread that chapter. If we're being very technical, they weren't ordered to be mass executed. It was they're trying to find the woman that is Roger's, the mother to Roger's child and execute her. So it's not like they just killed every pregnant woman, is what it seemed like. They were trying to find the mom who it was. But they did say that if a woman seems suspicious, like it could be her, then we're going to execute her, right? So that's really bad, obviously. From Garp's perspective, maybe it's like, well, I'm protecting the one that they're looking for, so, they can't kill her. But that obviously doesn't prevent the Marines from incorrectly assuming that maybe this woman is the mother instead and then killing her, right? That's probably the worst thing. That's the indefensible side of Garp's actions. I've never said that Garp is like a perfect character. But I do think that people go way too far in terms of the critiques of him. The reality is that Garp and Sengoku, when you're in the Marines, that's like the most morally complicated position in One Piece, by far. Because you're in a place where, if you're a good guy character, you're in the organization that is supposed to do good, and you're there trying to do good, but the organization is also used for such blatant evil at the same time, right? So it's a very difficult, it's the most complicated position in One Piece to be in. That's why the Marines are a lot of the most interesting characters. Jack Winner 1000, thanks for the 5. That Dragon Garp scene is the final nail in the coffin for me. If anyone hates that scene, they cannot read. I don't know. I love the scene a lot, but yeah, I thought it's a really good scene. I thought Oda did justice to the two characters very well right there. Let's get the stream lights up to 100 real quick. JP, thanks for being a member for 32 months. Shank's dad killed Blackbeard's dad. They're destined to fight. Oh, man. That's so crazy. Whoa, time out. Think about that. Think about the fucking reversal. So, because if you go back one generation, right? In today's generation, right? Shanks is kind of the honorable character, right? The honorable character, he steps up, takes on people up front. He's virtuous, noble, yada, yada, right? And Blackbeard is that sneaky, conniving, backstabbing character who will just take whatever opportunity he can to get a quick kill or a win or something like that on somebody who's weakened or somebody who he's ambushing or whatever, right? Two very different characters. Beautiful writing. That's a great point. Beautiful writing by Oda that if you go back one generation, right, it was the reverse. Rox was that proud, strong warrior character who was like, I'll go up and I'll fight God if I need to. Like, I'll take him on. I've got this conqueror's haki spirit. Like, I'll fucking fight, like, Harold, the king of the giants or whatever. Like, Rox was this proud, honorable figure with these staunch values that he upheld and everything like that. And then Shanks' father, Garling, was the sneaky, dirty, cowardly fighter who would try and cheat and ambush and take advantage of when somebody's weakened and everything like that. Really interesting writing. I like that a lot. I'm going to make that a note. Hold on. Hold on. That is a really cool contrast. Carnage, thanks for the 5. Think the reason that Loki hates Shanks is because he gave the Nika fruit away and Loki wanted it for himself. That's interesting. I do wonder if Shanks gets involved at this point with the fighting of Dommy Reversy and Harold. I do wonder if Shanks gets involved, because I just can't imagine Loki doing it himself. But then I wonder why the Giants all blame Loki for Harold's death. But the Nika fruit is a really good point. Maybe Loki thinks that Shanks stole the Nika fruit. You're right, because the Nika fruit does go missing. Mad D-Sun 300, thanks to the 5. Shanks' sword has a Zoan-like brother, so he could lose to Mihawk in sword duel, but still be stronger over... Oh, his sword has a Zoan like his brother, but still be stronger overall, and it wouldn't count as the strongest swordsman. I guess, but, would you even feel happy with that? Shanks is just stronger because he's got, literally a magic sword? I don't know. I guess it's part of your abilities, but why not give that sword to Mihawk and then... I don't know. A-Hill, thanks for the 2. I meant all of One Piece chronologically. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I think, if we took all the flashbacks, right? Start with God Valley flash. Or maybe fucking start with Nolan Kilgara flashback or something. And then... Is that what you're saying? Start with the beginning point in time and then move forward? Is that correct? That's what I assume you meant by chronologically. JP, thanks for the 5. Sengoku did agree to take the blame for agreeing to Shanks' term at Marineford. He was also against the Impel Down cover-up, so he probably does buffer. That's a good point, JP. I wasn't giving him credit. He does do some things, so we probably don't see everything behind the scenes. That's a good point. We do, I think, ultimately get to see the moments that Sengoku caves and okays things for the Marines, but that's because the Marines have to be portrayed. We have to see the bad sides of the Marines, right? Elijah Petty, thanks a lot. Harold tore off his horns, losing some of his power. I don't know if the horns have his power, but I don't know. Is Par Vision here? Oh, you're calling me Evil Par. That's funny. A Griffin mythical zone, I guess? Yeah, maybe. Blackbeard killing Shamrock is full circle for rocks. I mean, I think Blackbeard's going to kill Shanks, personally, but, let's get the stream lights up to 150 real quick. Shanks wielding Rox's saber is way more likely now. I don't know about that. How did you guys feel about the whole God Valley incident? Let's do some rating. Hold on. How did you feel? How do you rate the God Valley incident? Marcos Lopez, thanks for the 10. Garp freed Dragon and not Ace because Dragon never did anything wrong. He became a Marine and Garp knew what happened in God Valley while Ace became a pirate / brought it on himself for the most part. That is... So, I think I would love to get some more clarification why. I think there's a couple factors. One is that in Garp's conversation with Ace, he literally says, it's too late for us to do anything because we've angered the King of the Seas, right? So... the war is coming no matter what, right? That was the big difference with the Ace thing, and that's the thing that I've stressed about Marineford a lot of times. It stopped being about Ace as soon as Whitebeard decided to move. Because the rule was, you cannot touch any of Whitebeard. It was basically, if the Marines and the Yonko have been basically in a Cold War of sorts for, decades, right? That was a breach of... peace, basically, right? Peace, whatever it was, or a breach of the tenuous balance, right? No matter what, Whitebeard has to go. He has to go to war for Ace now because the Marines have broken the rule, the cardinal sin. You cannot touch any of Whitebeard's children. You cannot do that, right? That's what his flag has to represent. That's established in the story. The Whitebeard pirates even say it or whatever. So the war is coming no matter what. It's too late to turn back, right? I think that's literally the name of a chapter. I think that might even be the name of the chapter that Garp tells us to Ace. Too late to turn back or something like that. Or no one can stop it now. It might be the name of the chapter. I might be wrong. So that's pretty huge, right? So that situation was just no longer about saving Ace or not. It was about like a world war is happening, and it's whatever happens at the end if it happens. I still think that Garp could have freed Ace there, like you said, but the other part of it is like Garp even regrets, like, why couldn't you have, like, why'd you guys grow up to be pirates? Why couldn't you have been Marines? I don't think Garp has that regret for Dragon, because Garp knows Garp knows that Dragon tried to do the Marine path, and he determined that that's not good enough, right? But what Dragon chose to do is, I imagine, from Garp's perspective, right, was take on even more responsibility, right? If you think about the spectrum of like doing good, right? Being a pirate basically means that it doesn't mean that you're doing bad, evil things necessarily, as we've seen from Luffy, as we've seen from Ace or whatever, but you are basically choosing a life of fucking around and doing fuck all, right? You have great strength, right? Great power comes great responsibility. If you're a pirate, you're not using your power for jack shit, right? Look at Roger. Roger and the Roger Pirates or whatever for like decades sailed the sea. Like, Roger literally was like, I just came to God Valley to like pick up Shacky, like get some ass and get some cash and dip. That's the life of a pirate, right? Garp doesn't respect that. He doesn't respect characters who do that, right? If you're a Marine, you are in theory, right, trying to do something that's responsible. You're trying to, even though the organization is ultimately at its core very flawed and evil in many ways, on paper, if you're joining the Marines, you are theoretically trying to do something for people that are not yourselves, right? You're trying to help civilians or trying to make the world a better place. You're just part of a shit organization, right? And then if you go one step further in terms of moral responsibility, then you got Dragon, who is actually trying to, like, fuck the Marines. I'm just going to change the world and do it the hard way, right? I'm just going to carve my own path, build my own organization, which is the hardest thing to do, tear down the entire establishment, and fix the whole thing, right? I imagine Garp probably respects that way more than going the other direction, which is like, well, I'm not going to be a Marine because, like, it's the Marines are shitty or whatever, but I'm just going to go be a fucking, like, bum-ass pirate, right? Garp is never going to respect that. Why would Garp respect that, right? Why would he want Luffy and Ace to grow up to be so fucking strong? Like, he raises them to be so strong and everything, and their dreams aren't like, I want to protect citizens, protect the weak or something like that. Their dreams are shit like, Luffy's like, well, I'm going to go find the world's biggest treasure. And Ace is like, well, I'm going to go sail around and just give a giant screw you to my dad. Garp was probably sitting there like, what the fuck did I train these two fucking superhuman kids up to be? If anything, you know what's interesting? Considering how Garp has taken in Kobe, right? Kobe, Helmeppo under his wing, and is really raising them to be the future of the Marines, right? And he's training the kids that he sees are right? Like the kids who have the good values and everything. He's training them to be as strong as possible to be the future of the Marines. Garp, in retrospect, probably deeply regrets. Like, you can kind of actually feel now how much he probably deeply regrets that Luffy and Ace didn't grow up to be Marines, because in Garp's mind, it's entirely possible he was like, I could have raised the next generation of Marines right there, right? Like, I could have raised the next generation, my grandsons, basically, to be the ones who can kind of usher in a new era or something, right? He's got to fucking work with Kobe and Helmeppo as his backup options, which fucking sucks. So I can understand why Garp's opinions on Dragon are not, like, how he treats Dragon is not going to be the same as how he views Luffy and Ace. Interestingly, I don't think Garp has ever spoken negatively of Dragon, whereas he does speak negatively of pirates and everything, because it makes sense. Pirates don't try to be heroes. Bullshit excuses? No, that's reality. That's like... well, no, I agree I'm giving some interpretation to it, but I'm saying in terms of, like, the sliding scale of moral responsibility, pirates are on the lowest end, where they basically are like, we have no moral responsibility. Marines are like, good Marines are like, we try to do good things, but we know we're in, like, a morally questionable spot. And then Dragon is the far end of it, where it's like, I'm going to shoulder the responsibility of actually saving the world, right? People mostly got God Valley. Well, it's a split, because no, we got about 60% of people. No, Yeah, 60% of people got it at a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. We got 40 or 30-ish, 40% of people-ish who've got it 8 out of 10 or lower. Yeah, I think it was good. I think overall, I would be lying if I didn't want a little bit more juice, especially for its conclusion. But I still think it was good. Marcos Lopez, we covered that. Is that Motherly Love? Motherly Love! Thanks for joining the Yonko. I really, really appreciate that. I hope you enjoy your new Yonko status. Try out your new emotes. And every Tuesday, there is a podcast that comes out accompanying every video. So definitely watch out for that this Tuesday, and you get access to all the previous podcasts. So thank you very much for joining and for the support. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Madsun300 says Luffy wouldn't be as strong without the Nika fruit. Yeah, I agree. Of course. And Crust, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 27 months, man. Davy Jones and Joy Boy probably have a friendly relationship compared to Luffy and Blackbeard. It's so interesting. Davy probably had the Yami no Mi. They say he hoards everything in the ocean floor abyss, like how Blackbeard sucks in. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think that I put out a video basically breaking down recently, right? Like the whole I just put out a video about the Davy Jones stuff. The entire Void Century Solved video, basically. And I think that's a really, really strong video if you want to check that out. But yeah, I think Davy Jones and Joy Boy did have a really good relationship. I think Joy Boy was set to be the successor to Davy Jones in terms of being the king of the Ancient Kingdom. Much like Odin was next in line for Shogun of Wano and everything. I think there's a lot of parallels that you can kind of glean from that. The Luffy and Blackbeard thing is so interesting because I don't think the Davy clan is supposed to be a bad clan. I think actually in retrospect, the whole Davy clan is on the right side of history. Like, they're the ones that were usurped. I think that all signs point to Davy Jones actually having been a good king of the Ancient Kingdom. And Rock's, his character is actually very admirable in many ways. I think that's the beauty of Blackbeard's character, because he's supposed to be a concept of sort of twisted inherited will, where something goes wrong along the chain. And I encourage you guys to watch this Tuesday's video because I elaborate on that in great detail there. I think Oda's doing something really, really interesting with the storyline of Rocks and Blackbeard that is very unexpected, but elevates the story. Good luck! Thanks for the 2. Rocks' last moments, his silhouette looks like Brook. Does it? Because he looks like a skeleton? I don't know about that, man. You sure? Rocks is that? Where? Rocks' last moments, his silhouette looks like Brook. I don't think I... Oh, are you making a skull joke? Brook is a part of the Davy clan? Wait, what are people talking about? Am I missing something? Where's the Brook references? Paul says Brook is a part of the Davy clan. What am I missing? Where am I missing something? Talking about like the Loki scene or something? Where's the Brook references? I literally don't know what people are talking about. Brook human form? Oh, it's a theory? Okay, I guess I just don't even see it. Okay. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 10. I'd rather Shanks be stronger because he has a magic sword than because he swings a sword in a way that doesn't count as swordsmanship. Then, though, there is no visual distinction between them. Yeah, I get that would probably clear things up better, and just for the sake of clarity, I think that might be better. But yeah, I don't know. I've just always been on the train that I wish that there was more to haki, but I guess that haki just is at the highest level. I mean, there's always going to be the possibility that there's something more, but so far it still just seems like you just coat your attacks with haki, and then you just punch, kick, slash. BFJ97, thanks for the 2. Best post-time skip arc? I think Elbaf is turning out to be the best post-time skip arc to me. Evil Friend, thanks for the 5. Any thoughts on Roger and Garp's haki being able to undo Dommy Reversy? I think it's it's just the same old, right? Dommy Reversy is the result of a Devil Fruit ability. You overwhelm it with enough haki. It's just, you got it, you know? That's what it seems like. Random God, thanks for the 5. One of my critiques with the flashback was Shaki just being a plot device and her gag conflicting tonally with the genocide occurring on the island. I think that it got toned down. I think Oda did a good flow. So, personally, Shaki being a plot device, I could agree with that, but Oda needed something to kind of... He did a bait and switch, right? So, like, he set up... Like, I remember there was a moment where it seemed like Shaki was going to be the great treasure of God Valley or whatever that everybody went to war over. This was before we thought that Rox, it's still going to come down to, like, Rox being a bad guy or something like that. Like, there was a chapter, I think maybe it was after 1157 or something like that, maybe after 1158, where it was just like, okay, so God Valley is just going to be this big fight over, like, Shaki and this, like, sort of gag love that everybody has for her. But that was just Oda. Oda just needed something that would draw different characters to God Valley. Like, so bring in Roger, and then Garp gets brought in because Roger's brought in and stuff like that, and motivate the Rox Pirates to go there, right? Rox's own motivation is separate, but the Rox Pirates as a whole are like, yeah, we need to go get Shaki. And it needed to be a light and simple motivation, right? Something that didn't actually matter that much at the end of the day, right? So Shaki was a good choice because it's in line with One Piece's comedy and everything, yada yada. I think that Oda made a good tonal shift as God Valley continued, because I agree the Shaki stuff was kind of a silly gag towards the beginning of it, but as God Valley progresses, it becomes more and more serious. And I think by the end of it, you know, Shaki's just out of the equation. I kind of just don't even remember her at that point outside of Rayleigh running around, right? So by the end of it, it's pretty heavy, I think, across the board. I think some of the gags that are happening simultaneously with the Rox Pirates could have been eliminated. I think that's one of the only things that Oda might have tried to do too much of with God Valley, which is just the Rox Pirates trying to do too many little subplots with them. You have to show them disbanding, and you have to show them falling apart and, like, abandoning Rox and everything. I think I'm good with all of the focus he did on the Yonko, because we want to see Whitebeard Kaido Big Mom. But all of the little stuff, it just did take up time. I don't know. I think it's frustrating, too, because you can literally see... I feel like this whole flashback, the flashback in general, will end around 1170. I think it might end at 1170. I think Oda had a set amount of story space that he wanted to devote to this flashback, and we're getting that, you know? Elijah Petty, thanks to 2. Rox's recent color reveal has major Buggy vibes. Yeah, there might still be some Buggy Davy Clan possibilities going around out there. I mean, the bounty poster similarities, all of that. Sir Wins a lot, thanks a lot. I really want Teach to succeed in his goals. I do too. I want Teach to be able to kill Emu, get some revenge or whatever, and then from there, you know, after that, then he gets defeated or whatever. JP, thanks for the 5. Despite their friction, at some point Dragon must have had to turn back to Garp to trust him with Luffy. The relationship probably amended a bit then. That's very true. You know what? I'm forgetting aspects of the Garp-Dragon relationship. Don't even listen to me. I'm very curious to see how that went. That's another scene that we then have to see. So I'm excited for the Dragon storyline. What this flashback has done is... I'd say the one downside is... It made me like Roger a little bit less, but it elevated so many other characters for me, because now Rox, one of my all-time favorite One Piece characters. Dragon, one of my all-time favorite One Piece characters. I like Garp a lot after this whole flashback. Garp just got a lot of really cool moments in this flashback. Like, one of the coolest things will always be, like, that chapter where it's like all the major forces showing up at God Valley, and it's like the Rox Pirates, and it's this huge assembly of Rox and all these legends, and then it's like the Gods Knights, and it's all the Gods Knights lined up, and then you got the Roger Pirates, and it's Roger, Rayleigh, Gaban all storming into battle, and then the final one that they dropped is, and it's just called Garp's Fleet. And it's basically just Garp. Garp and a bunch of fodder marines behind him. And Garp's line is fucking hilarious in the Viz. He says here, it's just like, it's just this lone Marine. There's no fucking admirals or anything else backing him up. All these other characters have got, you know, a bunch of other top tier type characters on their side, right? Like Roger's got fucking Rayleigh and Gabon flanking him. Rox has all the Yonko and Shiki and all of this shit behind him. The Gods Knights are a whole squad. And then Garp is just showing up. And in the Viz, he says, he just shows up and he's, his fist is in the air and he's like, "Here I am, baby." It's like, what, who do you think you are? Why, why is he saying, "Here I am, baby"? It's just such a fucking comical line. Like, I don't know, there's just something that gets me reading that every single time. I'm like, read the room, man. Like, what? There's some serious shit going on here. You don't even know what, he literally doesn't even know anything about what's happening at this island. Like, at the very least, the Roger Pirates know that there's like an auction and some shit happening for Shaki, you know? Garp just shows up in the middle of like World War X by himself, essentially by himself, right? We can all agree he's essentially going in there solo based on who he brought with him and their complete lack of impact, right? And then he's just going in, pumping his fist, yelling, "Here I am, baby," and everybody's just like, "Ah, fuck, we gotta deal with this fucking, this dude now." The moment of him, like, hunting the Yonko, like, literally hunting the Yonko, that was really cool. Yeah, I was never a Garp fan in the past. I think I didn't find just fighting with fists to be that cool. I think Hachinosu made me like Garp more. I've had to put out a lot of videos in the past defending Garp because, again, like, I will defend characters if I feel like they're getting a bad rep or they're being misinterpreted. But I didn't actually like Garp that much in the past. Now I like Garp, legitimately. I think I like him more than Roger. Not quite as much as Whitebeard. But yeah, something like that. And then Dragon. Yeah, Dragon, I think Dragon could easily end up being, like, he's already one of my all-time favorite One Piece characters. He could contend for, like, the top spots for sure once we actually get to his stuff, you know? Yeah, Garp with the hands. I think there's just something so cool about the way that Oda portrays Garp in that he's just going in raw. That's what Garp did. He just raw dogged God Valley, basically. It's like literally. He's just, not literally, but you know what I mean. He just raw dogged God Valley. He was like, it's the biggest war ever. Rox is going in with a plan. The Roger Parts are going in with a plan. The Gods Knights are all assembled there, right? They all know what's going on to some degree. They've all got their agendas and everything like that. Garp literally just hears Roger's there and some other people or whatever. And Garp's just like, all right, bet. He heads over. He shows up with just like everybody else has got these huge squads. Garp has nothing. It's just him on a ship, right? And fodder. It's just him and fodder. He doesn't have devil fruits. He doesn't have weapons. He just has his fists. It's just such a comical concept, if that makes sense. He doesn't know what's going on. He knows there's celestial dragons here, but he doesn't know why. He's just like, I'm just going to come in swinging, and then we see what happens. It's just, there's something really funny about that character. Something really, really funny about Garp's whole approach to everything. Anyway. There is something cool to see a dude just like fight with plain fists in a world where everybody else has devil fruits or like weapons and yada yada, you know? Continuing on, 1 second. JP says Shanks makes a golden arm of haki meme real. I don't think that's what Ashura is, though. I don't know why people think that something like that is dumb. I just think that, like, if he did make another arm, it would have to be not used for swordsmanship. If it's used for swordsmanship, then he's still fucking just fighting as a swordsman or something, right? Shanks making another arm is not weird. It's already canonically a thing in the story that can be done by characters weaker than Shanks, like Zoro right now. It's literally a thing. It's a thing. I guess the golden arm thing is kind of silly because then it's like, well, what's a golden arm or whatever? But Ashura is a real thing. It's already in the story. Other characters do that. It's a confirmed haki technique that you can create more limbs. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Chizzer2, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 1 month. Hi, Morge. I asked a few chapters ago if you thought Blackbeard or Emu was the final villain, and you said it was really hard to say. What made you switch to Blackbeard? Honestly, okay, here's the absolute honest truth. I'm not 100% on Blackbeard. The last video that I did, the thing that I do strongly believe is that all three of those characters from God Valley, like, I think that the story is written around that. Like, God Valley was a story of Roger, Garp, and Rox, the protagonists of this flashback so far, running into Emu and not being able to do anything to Emu, right? This was a tragic sort of storyline for them. It was also the storyline of their three children. Blackbeard, Dragon, and Shanks, right? Those were the three core child characters of this incident. I think that their destinies are fated to eventually lead back to basically the same conflict that their fathers once had, all right? Now, do I think that those three defeat Emu? I don't know. I just believe that they will all be involved in the battle with Emu. But for the video's sake, I didn't want to say something like, I think Blackbeard, Dragon, Shanks all get a shot against Emu, because that's not as exciting. I think that they will all be a pivotal part of fighting Emu. They might not even all do it together. Maybe there's turns, or maybe there's an alliance of like Dragon, Shanks, Luffy, fucking Zoro, or something like that that's fighting Emu. Then Blackbeard comes in at the end and takes out Emu, or something like that, right? I just feel like those three are all going to get a shot at Emu. They're all going to be important when it comes to his defeat. I don't know who is going to give the final blow. I think Blackbeard will be the one to kill him probably and take the fruit, but I don't know the context, okay? So, with that in mind, right, I'm leaning towards Blackbeard being the final villain because I feel like the story... How to explain it? I feel like Oda set things up such that Emu works well as a sort of team battle setup, and Blackbeard works well as a sort of only Luffy villain. And therefore, in that flow of events, I don't think we get a scenario where it's like Luffy defeats Blackbeard and then Luffy solos Emu, especially because I think at this rate, Blackbeard is probably going to get Emu's fruit. So... because I've been looking in the story. I'm like, what is the final fruit that Blackbeard's going to get? He needs at least one more fruit, right? I've thought for a while it's going to be the Elbaf fruit. The Elbaf fruit is looking like it's going to be the Nika fruit. I've thought for a while that maybe it's going to be Loki's Zoan or something, but now I don't know about that. I think that things could be, like, now that we know the full story of it being like Blackbeard is the descendant of Davy Jones, right? I feel like that adds a whole other layer where Oda loves his cycles of like somebody like king in charge, but then they're usurped, but then that usurped king now becomes a pirate and now they have to rise back up and take back what they once had, right? Oda loves those sort of cycles. I think now that we know that Blackbeard is the descendant of Davy Jones, the original king, then it's kind of like setting him up almost, in my opinion, that while Emu is the current king, Blackbeard could be set to take over as the true original king, but now he's a dark, bastardized version of what the original Davy Jones was. I think my reasoning was basically like, if I had to guess right now between Blackbeard and Emu, I'm leaning towards Blackbeard being more likely. And if that's the case, then I feel like Emu goes down in some sort of a team fight. Blackbeard takes the fruit at the end. Blackbeard becomes an even more powerful version of Emu. That's what I'm leaning towards, but we don't know. I could change my mind by the end of Elbaf. We don't know. Malik, F15, thanks for 2. You're getting Attack on Titan vibes from Harold and Eldian Marley Guilt. I kind of remember, because I haven't read it or watched Attack on Titan in a long time, but I do remember. I just lost interest after they spilled the secrets for the Titan stuff. I guess kind of. It does make sense. I think one of the things that Oda could have done, it's tricky because, like, Oda does so much, but at the same time, it's like, how to say? because he tries to fit in so much, sometimes he can truncate certain things that would help certain stories. I think showcasing like a lot of the genuine evils that the Giants did in the past would have helped. Because what we did see was like Harold going around and basically like fucking up some towns and essentially like trolling people, right? But Oda didn't go so far as to make it look like Harold is some sort of like evil, genocidal, like I'll just come and like kill everybody in island type thing, right? Even when it comes to like the giant warrior pirates that terrorize the world, it's tricky because Oda tells us that they did that, but in actuality, he wants us to like Dory and Brogy. So the Dory and Brogy that we get are like these jolly, fun characters who are pretty nice, you know? They don't really fit the bill of like Elbaf's violent, like murderous warriors or anything, and their crew doesn't fit that either, right? So we've basically been told a lot that the Giants have these sins that they must atone for. But what would be more effective is if we saw something like Giants O'Haraing an island or something like that, or Giants doing what the Beast Pirates did to Zoe or something. Like a glimpse of that, I think would help. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but I don't think we've really seen that. Because the Giants that we've seen so far, it's like, it's one of those cases where Oda's playing the line where it's like, I'm going to tell you that they don't do good things, but I still want you to like the characters, so I'm not really going to show you them doing like really terrible things, you know? Sorry. All Might, thanks for the 5. In 1096, Garp reveals that he knows more than he lets on. Plus, he's been in the Navy 20 years. I think it's cheap that this was his first dilemma around justice. Let me read 1096 again, because, I mean, I've revisited this. But I think Garp is just a dummy. I don't think that... I don't know why that's not a fitting excuse for people, because it's like, well, he's been around 20 years or something like that. Garp's not intelligent. He's not an intelligent character. And in One Piece, lack of intelligence can go to great extremes. Keep in mind, if Luffy hadn't been outright told, right, straight up revealed to him, right, he would still think that that fucking chef that he met on Foxy's crew was some random chef. It had to be revealed to him by Foxy, okay? Garp is the same sort of Luffy type. Like Garp obviously seems more coherent and intelligent than Luffy, but Garp obviously at that point in time is a 40-year-old version of Luffy. Luffy's probably going to be somewhat wiser by that age, right? Like, if Luffy can't realize that Sogeking is Usopp, when this is his best friend in the world who's just put on a mask, right? And he's fighting with fucking slingshots and shit in front of him, right? For an entire arc? Why the fuck would it be weird to think that Garp maybe didn't realize that there are Marines out there that do bad things when he's not noticing? He's not... Luffy and Garp are very in-the-moment, what's in front of my eyes characters. They have no sort of broader, abstract thinking. They don't do that. They're not reflective. They're not big picture people. They're what's in front of me right now. And that applies to everything. Like individual arc conflicts and stuff like that. Luffy largely... I don't think Luffy knew what's going on in most of the Alabasta conflict. All he knew is that, like... That's literally why it's stressed, like... All he knew in the Alabasta conflict was, I just need to go kick Crocodile's ass, right? That's all I gotta do. That's why he keeps reiterating that. And Vivi's like, no, it's a lot more complicated. There's a lot more players and stuff here. Vivi literally showed Luffy... I think Vivi... I forget what it was. It was like... Hold on, I'm trying to remember. There was some arc where... Shit. Was it Skypiea? There's some arc where like somebody points something out to Luffy and Luffy's like, oh shit, I gotta go beat up this old man or something like that, and it's actually a good guy. I forget, was it Gonfall in Skypiea? Luffy's like, oh, I should go kick his ass or something. Maybe it was Cobra. I don't remember the exact thing, but like Luffy usually doesn't even know who the fuck he's supposed to fight or who the bad guys are in any situation unless he's specifically told and it's explained to him, right? Anyway, let's see. So 1096, why such a remote island? I can't tell you, please Garp, just go. We're not certain yet, but we can't afford to take chances. Oh, is this the Celestial Dragon's little field trip? I warned you not to mess with full of lead, but who listens to me? That was treasure from Pirate Island. Of course they'll come back to get it. Who leaked that information? Hey, they got plenty of security, right? With Roger would get involved. What's the what does Garp let on that he knows here? Is there something I'm missing? He says he thinks it's a field trip, so he thinks it's a field trip, right? Yeah, it was Gon Fall. Yeah, literally. Like, Luffy does it. You just point and you tell Luffy that's the bad guy. He'll just be like, okay, that's the fucking bad guy, right? You'll usually trust one person or something like that. He doesn't know. They were in Skypiea. There's a giant civil war going on around him. He's walking through the woods singing like that fucking people in the South are bakas and stuff song, right? That's the Luffy Garp sort of mentality. They're just dumb. They're just dumb. Like, your argument that, like, well, it's been 20 years, he should have known. Oda establishes that he doesn't know. Garp not knowing is also logically consistent with the story based on the character that Garp is, because in the One Piece world, characters can be severely stupid to the point that they are unable to recognize the most basic, obvious things that are in front of them. That's just a part of One Piece writing. Heavenly Weather 117, thanks to the 5. Emu will Dommy Shanks, and when Luffy frees him, Blackbeard will kill him. So one thing that I've thought about is that the Final War matchups become a lot more potentially messy and interesting in a way when you consider the Dommy Reversy angle, right? First, let's get the streamlights up to 150 real quick. Because Dommy Reversy, anything kind of goes. With Oda having Emu Dommy Reversy rocks, two things are established. One, it does not matter how strong you are, or how strong your haki is, or just how strong your will is, right? None of that matters. I assume he can't do it to someone Joy Boy level, but that's not relevant because, like, everybody else is basically Rocks level or below, right? Or at most, like, a roughly Rocks' level. I don't know, like, Rocks is pretty much the gold standard, right? Maybe you can argue, well, I think this character might be slightly stronger than Rocks, or this character might be slightly stronger than Rocks. We don't know. The point is that around that level, like Pirate King level or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can get Dommy Reversed by Emu. So nobody is really safe, right? Nobody's really safe. So that's established number one. Number two, what's established is that character-wise, nobody is safe. And by character-wise, I mean that Dommy Reversy is a fairly humiliating thing to do to a character, right? Like it's Oda basically disrespecting the character in a sense by turning them into this helpless puppet that's being used by the villain. And Oda generally treats his characters with, like, his heroic characters with a lot more respect, right? But Oda did it to Rocks. And Rocks was a character that Oda wrote as fucking like this world-beating conquers haki, like Pirate King-esque, like King of the World-esque figure. Like, Rocks is a character that we followed for this extremely lengthy flashback. Like, Oda wrote him as this true protagonist of the story. A great man, a great figure. Out of the entire old era, Rocks is arguably now maybe the most legendary figure of that era in the context of like, outside the One Piece world itself. Just looking at what the characters became, what they achieved, and everything like that. Rocks is at least as great of a figure as, you know, Roger and Whitebeard and stuff, and you could argue in many ways more so he just got extinguished from history, unlike them, right? So if Oda is willing to write a character that great, that proud, that strong, that willful, like literally, like Rocks is basically a Pirate King type character, right? If Oda is willing to do that to Rocks and just drag him down to that level where he's Dommy Reversy turned into a slave by Emu, I don't care who your favorite character is. I don't care who it is. They're on the table. They're on the table. Okay? I don't care if your favorite character is Shanks, if it's Mihawk, if it's Dragon, if it's Zoro. If Oda is willing to do that to Rocks, which is a character that Oda wrote basically in the sort of Roger Whitebeard, like, legendary status light, right? This Pirate King-esque character, he can do it to anybody, any of your favorites. They're all on the board, all right? If Oda thinks it'll be good for the story, it could happen, right? Who would have thought 5 chapters ago that, like, we would see Rocks reduced to this sort of blubbering, crying, like, please kill me, please put me out of my misery type character, turned into this puppet that's forced to attack his wife and child? Who would have thought that 5-10 chapters ago? It did not seem like he's that type of character, but Oda did it to him. And Oda does it to Harold too. Harold, fucking strongest character in the sea for 100 years, right? King of the Giants, super strong will or whatever. It looks like Harold's gonna get Dommy Reversy too. It does not matter who your favorite character is. It seems like Oda will be willing to do this to any character, right? So I'm just saying, Dommy Reversy is a dangerous thing to include into the story here. It could upset a lot of people. I mentioned this on another stream, but you better get ready for it being an actual possibility, even if you don't like it. Zoro versus Mihawk could be Zoro versus Dommy Reversy Mihawk. And again, if you're just like, oh no, Oda wouldn't do that to Mihawk, yada yada yada. He did it to Rocks. Oda just devoted one of the longest flashbacks in the entire story to this character, Rocks, and it ended with him getting Dommy Reversy, right? Mihawk is not above that in terms of how Oda might write him. Oda might do it to fucking Shanks if he wants to have Dommy Reversy Shanks fight Luffy. That could happen. These things are on the table, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's good storytelling or not. Oda could do it. A lot of people didn't think it'd be good writing for Rocks to get Dommy Reversy. It happened. So it's a very dangerous game Oda's playing here. Dommy Reversy is lazy and lame as fuck. Let's see how it's used. I'm not going to say I love it, but let's see how it's used over I don't want this stuff to happen, by the way. I don't want to turn the final battle into like a bunch of like our favorite characters being turned into pawns by Emu to just turn against our heroes. I would rather Oda actually present villains that are strong enough in their own right to present that challenge for our heroes. But the reality is that this is something that Oda did for Roger and Garp, right? For the greatest, like, in the context of the One Piece world, right? The greatest pirate of all time and the greatest marine of all time, right? Oda took us back into their era, their heyday, and he showed us the most important battle of their lives, the biggest battle of their lives, and it was against a Dommy Reversy character, right? That was the battle Oda chose for Roger and Garp as their iconic big fight. It's a Dommy Reversy puppet. Your favorite character is not safe. If he's going to do that to Roger and Garp and have their big finale fight be like that, it could happen to your favorite character too. Your favorite Straw Hat, your favorite whoever. Sage MM, thanks for the 5. What do you think about everyone asking for a God Valley movie because the anime is seasonal now? I just don't know if that would work because it doesn't have the Straw Hats. I don't know if it would work because it doesn't have the Straw Hats. I think, like, I've talked about this before, but for us invested One Piece readers, a flashback to all these past characters is really exciting. But I'm saying that for people who are like barely casual fans and stuff, or like people who are not as familiar with One Piece, or maybe they tried it a bit, but not really, like, I don't know if a movie that has none of the main characters, literally not a single main character of One Piece would work. I don't know. Here's the thing. I personally think that Dommy Reversy can be countered, like a lot of people believe. I believe that Dommy Reversy can be countered with the music of the Nika fruit, or something along those lines. I subscribe to that theory. I think it's a good theory. So I think it won't necessarily be a problem in the final war. We might see some characters get Dommy Reversied and then Luffy reverse it. I think that's one of the two reasons that Oda, or one of the two fruits that Oda said are needed to defeat Emu, or had Rocks be searching for, you know? Carnage, thanks for the 2. Do you think Dragon will free Garp from Blackbeard? I don't know. We need more information about Dragon's character. I do think that we could see a confrontation. So the revolutionaries are attacking Marijua right now, right? With a siege, right? They're putting Marijua under siege, right? The Blackbeard pirates are about to pull some shit at Marijua as well. So we could see a revolutionaries versus Blackbeard pirates encounter. Maybe they negotiate to get Garp back. Who knows? Sageum, thanks for the 10. Or do you think because the anime is seasonal now, God Valley and Elbaf would be alright and taken care of? And in my personal opinion, I would want a golden age of piracy movie. How about you? If they could somehow cover golden age of piracy, if they could somehow cover the entire Rocks flashback through God Valley, I think it could work. Because the flip side, even though it doesn't have the Straw Hats, it does work as a self-contained storyline, so maybe it could all be good. But I don't know. That's an interesting idea. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 10. Do you think Wapol will appear early in live action season 2 and follow the Straw Hats along the way to Drum, similar to Arlong in season 1? I think Wapol will appear early in live action season 2 and follow the Straw Hats along the way to Drum, similar to Arlong in season 1. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We got to change gears. I was just like, why are you talking about Wapol and shit? Okay, live action season 2. Okay. Might make him a better villain to end the season with. I don't think so, but you never know. That's entirely possible because Wapol is out and about as a pirate right then. So we might see him in bits and pieces, but I don't know if he'd be all the way, like, if they'd go as extensive as having him follow them around, because we'll already have a few running plot lines, because we'll have the Smoker plot line, right? We'll have the Straw Hat's own plot line. I imagine Oda's going to be doing more work with the Baroque Works plot line and kind of building up to that. And then I think we'll probably get, I think it was confirmed we're still getting Kobe and Garp stuff, but I might be wrong. Otherworlds JT, thanks for the 5. If Shanks' sword is able to ignite, doesn't that mean it's not a normal sword with haki coated? I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm just going to leave that. Let's wait till we get some stuff. I don't even want to delve into the Shanks Mihawk stuff again, because it's kind of like, why not just call it the debate settled for now, and then if we get new information, we reopen it again, right? I get that people want to do what ifs and speculations, and it's like, well, what if the sword can do this, or what if he grows his arm back and stuff like that, right? That's fun to speculate about, but then it's also just like, I don't know. I think the Shanks Mihawk debate was fun for me before, when there's like a lot of when I liked bringing that up on stream and bringing up both like bring up my stances on stream, especially like things that I thought were in Shanks' favor, like Joy Boy Hockey Knot and stuff like that, right? But I was always clear that if it comes down to just being sword stuff, then we give it to Mihawk, right? I think we're at a point now where it's not as fun for me to talk about on stream, because I think it's pretty close-ended at the moment. Because it's no longer like, there's no longer really evidence you can bring on Shanks' side, right? Evidence supports the Mihawk side. So now it's turned into a lot of like, what ifs, like, well, what if he can do this with his arm? What if he's got a sword that does this or that? And it's like, it's fun to throw around the what ifs, but like, it doesn't feel like an engaging argument for me, because it's just like, well, yeah, what if, then I guess we see. What if that's a thing, then we see, you know? Before it was kind of like, there's evidence for this side, and we're kind of waiting to see, like, is it just, like, what does the peak of hockey kind of look like? I feel like we got a glimpse of what the peak of hockey looks like, so then that answers a lot of the questions that I thought were interesting in the debate. Does that make sense? So, for me, it's not fun to just be like, well, Mihawk's got the sword stuff on lock, and so now, with Shanks, if you come forward with arguments, it's not really arguments, it's just like, well, what if this thing could be a thing? It's like, I don't know. Like, what if that thing could be a thing? Like, I don't know. But it just feels a little lopsided right now. Does that make sense? If there's new information, we can open it up again, you know? Loman ITV, thanks for the 5. Sengoku seems to want to change the system from the inside. Oh, the last thing I'll say is that, like, if you're a Shanks fan and you're not happy with the current situation, right? Just keep in mind then, like, if you truly believe that Shanks will turn out to be stronger than Mihawk in some way, then this shouldn't really bother you for now, right? Because then, if you have faith in that, then the story will ultimately prove you right at some point in time. But at the moment, you kind of just got to sit on, like, okay, well, the points don't seem to be, there doesn't seem to be a solid case to make at the moment, right? So, but if you truly believe that Shanks will be stronger than Mihawk, then there's nothing to feel bad about. Just wait till later in the story if you feel that something's going to open up, right? So that's my message to you, I guess I would say. Like, if you truly believe, then what's the problem, right? Just put your hands up and like, just call it what it is, which is like, well, right now there's not really an argument for you to make, right? Loman ITV, thanks for the 5. Sengoku seems to want to change the system from the inside, and you can also say the same about Garp because he created Sword and also screw Garp haters. Yeah, I don't know about the creation of Sword. I'm interested about the creation of Sword. Maybe Sword was already a thing. Who knows? Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Ain't that Tanjiro's fire breathing? Am I crazy, or did, like, to me, Roger's final move looked like a fire breathing move from, like, Demon Slayer, right? Does it not? Doesn't this kind of look like a fire breathing style move? His ace attack or whatever. It's still swordsmanship. We're not trying to get into that or whatever. It's still swordsmanship as far as our knowledge of whatever, right? I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying visually, does this not look like a fire breathing move? I don't want to share on stream because I don't want to share stream panels, but you know. Sean Easton, thanks for the 5. Dommy Reversy Seraphim would make some insane final soldiers for Emu. Oh my god. Whoa. Sean Easton. Time out. Oh my god. Sean Easton with an amazing prediction. No, that would be insane. Because I already think that if the Seraphim are what was spelled out to us, right, then they should grow up to be stronger than their originals, whether people like it or not. If Oda is telling the truth with everything he's established about the Seraphim, as well as just the simple fact that the Seraphim have, like, an unprecedented amount of build-up in the story, because literally every single arc, starting with Punk Hazard, has been building to, like, the culmination of all the scientific achievements that have been established between Caesar, Judge, Queen, right? All coming together with Vegapunk's creation, which is the Seraphim, which combines essentially all of their experiments that they showcased in all of the prior arcs, right? And plus, Oda's just been talking up the Seraphim from just Dressrosa. So if they are as important as Oda has built them up to be, if they are the ultimate form of humanity, I kind of assume that, yeah, end of story, they would be the strongest, like, stronger than the originals. But then Dommy reversing them would be like a next level moment, because here's what I've always questioned, which is the Seraphim showed that they can disobey if their will is strong enough, right? Like we saw the Hancock Seraphim disobey, right? If, let's say, the Mihawk Seraphim, the Doflamingo Seraphim, right? If once they're adults, their Conqueror's Haki starts to come out or whatever, they would likely be able to break from the chain of command as well. But the thing that nobody seems to be able to fight against is Dommy Reversy, right? Doesn't matter if you're a Conqueror's Haki user or not, you can be fucking Rocksteady Zebek. It doesn't matter, right? So let's say Seraphim and a story that kind of break from the control that is placed over them, right? Dommy Reversy would be the next move that solidifies that, one, it gives them a buff, and two, it basically makes them unable to disobey. I think that'd be really interesting, because I think the Seraphim have to be important at the end of the story. Kyle Flanagan 963, thanks for the 10. At this point, even if there's no Davy Jones fruit, Dommy Reversy has to have some connection to Davy Backfight. Maybe it was originally Davy Jones's power, so the game is a memory of that. Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's definitely the case, because I don't know if Dommy Reversy has to be a connection to the Davy Backfight. I see where you're going with that, but I don't know if that definitely has to be the case. I think that's an interesting idea. June24, thanks for the 10. Love Blackbeard, but don't want him as the final boss. Emu sustaining the rule for 800 years deserves a better payoff than losing to a sleazy pirate, for that pirate to lose to Emu's real enemy after 5 minutes of ruling. So, I mean, I think that it's complicated, because you could frame it like that, but I would also say that I don't think that Emu just loses to a sleazy pirate. One, that's not a sleazy pirate, right? That is the actual king of the world. That is the descendant of Davy D. Jones, Emu's first great enemy, right? who Emu stole the throne from, this would just be destiny coming full circle, right? Blackbeard is a sleazy pirate only because Emu has labeled the Davy clan criminals and everything. In actuality, they're royalty. That is the, by birthright, right, the original king of the world, right? It's no different than fucking Momonosuke coming back to take Wano from Orochi, right? So that's something to consider. It's all perception, right? Just a sleazy pirate, right? 2, I feel like Emu being defeated by team effort actually is a little bit fitting in this scenario because Emu is a character that there's so many lines of enmity that there's so many lines of storytelling that lead to him, so many characters that have different reasons, right? Like Blackbeard and the Davy clan is one, right? But Dragon, who's fighting to free the world, is another, right? Shanks, the fallen celestial dragon, like these are all things I talked about in the previous video. I think a team effort to defeat Emu could be good, and then Blackbeard basically ascending after that to take back the throne of Davy Jones and potentially become an even worse king and cast the world in an even greater darkness. I think that there's an angle for that as well. I also feel like that concludes Luffy's own personal journey a little bit better in that he would be freeing the world from this dark king, right, that threatens to consume the world in darkness or whatever. But he would also be completing his journey to Pirate King because his final opponent is both an evil king and a pirate, right? The same pirate enemy that he faced, back when he just started on the Grand Line, right? So I think a lot comes together there. I'm not saying that Emu can't be the final villain or anything like that. I think that I'm leaning right now towards Blackbeard final villain. But I could easily see Emu still being the final villain. And if you've just watched my history on this, I've shifted back and forth so many times. Maybe by the end of Elbaf, I'm back to Emu. I don't know. Loman ITV, thanks for the 2. Also, Garp is training the future of the Marines. Yeah, I agree. Meek6173, thanks for the 10. I think before we get to the castle incident, all we have left to see are 3 things. Shanks and Harold at Reverie. Ooh, yeah. That's going to be important. Harold and Loki reaction to Roger's death. And Saul and O'Hara from Elbaf point of view. Agree? I hope we don't get jack shit from Saul and O'Hara. I just want to pretend that part of the story doesn't exist. But I agree with those things. So, I think that there's one other part. I think that Ida's death is important here as well. Whether that happens before or after Harold, I don't know. I think I feel like we might have, because I think the flashback will end around 1170, maybe 1171. Because I think Oda tends to shoot for certain goals to end certain sections of the story at. So if it ends at around 1170, 1171, so I think we get maybe Harold's death in the next 2-3 chapters, and then I think we have maybe another 2-ish chapters of Loki's misadventures that lead him back to being a prisoner in Elbaf. Oh, there's one other thing, right? There's Lola's stuff, right? Lola's storyline. I think Lola's storyline has to play out as well, and we don't really know exactly how where that fits in here. I hope Oda remembers it. Loman ITV, thanks for the 2. Shanks fans still coping. Mihawk is stronger. It's just the way it's always been a heated debate. People aren't gonna let go of that. Jolly D Joestar, thanks for the 5. So Rox is definitely alive. Damn it, Morge, you were right. Important people flashbacks mean that the important person is coming back into the story. I don't know if Rox is still alive. I have a whole video coming out next week that delves into it, but I don't think Rox is still alive. If Rox is still alive, then my video coming out next Tuesday, which I think is a really strong character analysis for Rox, wouldn't really work as well, but I don't think Rox is still alive, personally. If he is, that'd still be really cool, but I'm reading it as he's dead. Because I love Rox as a character. I would love to see him do more. Aslan, thanks for the 5. Do you like that some Conqueror's haki is stronger than other Conqueror's haki? You didn't like it in Dressrosa with Zoro versus Pika. I definitely did not like it back then, and I didn't like it just being introduced as a concept back then. Especially because, it felt so weird to me for Zoro's swordsmanship path. I think this was still early days, right? So we still didn't understand fully we just learned that haki was this additional thing that you're adding to your attacks, basically, to really, at the time, it was kind of like, this helps you hurt Logia. I think that was, people might forget, but that was the big selling point of haki early on, which was just like, One Piece had this, for all of pre-time skip, One Piece had this huge elephant in the room for like 500 straight chapters, which was like, the series seems to have normal scaling, right? Like every arc the Strats go, they meet some new guys who can fight, some bad guys, they beat up those guys, they get a bit stronger, then move to the next one or whatever. But there was this elephant in the room, which was like, well, there's this certain category of characters that they run into that they literally cannot touch. And it's just fucking bizarre, because some of them will be like a fucking lowly captain or something, like Smoker. And then others will be, you know, like fucking Marine Admiral Aokiji or something like that. Some of them will have made themselves gods up in heaven where literally nobody can touch them, right? Like Enel. Some of them you fight in the desert, and it's like, okay, well, we can figure out a way to use water to get around them, but that works on this guy. How would that work on anybody else? Like, what's the secret, right? Logias were just this giant elephant in the room, which was like, how the fuck do you deal with these characters? Are Logias just the strongest characters in the world? That doesn't seem right. So that was a very pressing part of One Piece discussion for like a long ass time. Logias were just this unsolvable Rubik's Cube thing that is just like, the fuck, how does this even fit into like how our main characters fight, how anybody fights or anything, right? So when haki was first introduced, keep in mind, we didn't even know back then like Conqueror's haki could be used for combat, right? All we learned early on was just the main use of haki, that was the big selling point, was like, you can hit Logias now. We can finally hit Logias. We can do that. That was the big interesting point, that you could hit Logias finally. And then we get to Sabaody and really Marineford, and suddenly you see all of these characters being able to hit Logias. And it's like, good! Finally, somebody's putting their hands on these characters. Like touch them up. Like, these characters are fucking, they're fucking just getting off scot-free for all of pre-time skip. So that was where haki seemed really special. It almost seemed like Oda had just invented it to get around the Logia problem that he had introduced. So it was kind of like, did Oda just come up with haki as a way to fix something that he should have never introduced into the story? No, it's post-time skip where we really learned that, like, being able to hit Logia, that's just like the basic side effect of haki, right? Like, haki in and of itself is like its own whole system, a poorly executed system, you might say, but it's its own whole power system or whatever. And the further you go, the more that you understand, like, it's the levels to it, yada yada yada, right? So the idea that at least early on in the time skip, when everyone was just using armament haki and stuff like that, there weren't too many moments where it was like, well, I win because my haki is better than yours, yada yada, right? I think a lot of people, when haki was first introduced, liked it as basically just like this equalizer that allowed you to fight back against a Logia. But I think people didn't really want it to just like change everything about these characters, right? So when Zoro said to Pika that, you know, the only way I can't cut you is if your haki is greater than mine or whatever, it was a weird moment, because in the past that was never the reason for why Zoro couldn't cut something. Although we did learn later on that the Mr. One fight actually the answer was haki, right? But in the past it was kind of like all of Zoro's swordsmanship stuff, like that's Zoro doing swordsmanship techniques and everything. And it raised a weird question, which was like, okay, so Zoro can cut Pika because Zoro's haki is greater than his, but then does that mean that like Zoro is hard capped in the story of what he can cut based on what his haki is? It just felt like for the first time, you know what it was? It felt for the first time like One Piece actually has power levels, right? Like strict power levels. Before that we had Dauriki at one point, but that never really came up again. With haki it was something like, oh, what felt more like a little bit fluid, right, is now being reduced to, I can cut you if my haki's better than yours, right? It almost felt like it kind of took like the fact that Zoro's a swordsman out of the equation, because it's kind of like, okay, well, what if Zoro wanted to punch Pika, right? What's the big difference there? Obviously, a slash will do more damage, right? But it's almost just like the sword becomes practically superfluous, because it's like, okay, what really matters here is not like the sword technique that I'm using, it's just how hard am I punching? Like, what if Zoro just put that same amount of haki on his fist and then punched Pika, right? Could that knock Pika out or something? I don't know. I didn't like that at that point in time. It also raises the question of, like, then why does it even matter which move Zoro uses, right? Zoro is different. Like, pre-time skip, he had a million moves. Post-time skip, he does as well, but it's kind of just like, well, if all it really comes down to is, like, how much haki you put on a sword when you attack, then what really difference does it make, you know? Like, if you're doing, like, this formation, or, like, the spinny sword formation, or, like, the ultra hunt formation, or whatever, right? Like, it's just how much haki you put on the blade, right? So I'm never gonna say that I like that. But we've stuck with the story for long enough that it's basically been established. We got another scene with, like, Cracker cut Luffy because Cracker's armament haki was better than Luffy's armament haki, right? As the story progressed, we've just kind of gotten used to it, and it's kind of just become like, okay, yeah, haki's what matters here. Ultimately, being the strongest swordsman, haki question, right? Or, like, something. It's the one additional part is that there is other elements, like there's observation haki, stuff like that. Like, speed and stuff still matters, so it's not just whose haki is stronger, but it does feel like I liked a bit more of the ambiguity in the past, you know? I like that haki is a good counter to all of the hacks abilities that One Piece has, because One Piece was never a story about, like, characters fighting with hacks abilities. Okay, like, for 500 chapters, we followed Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, who have 90% of the fights for our main characters, right? And Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji solve every problem by either punching, kicking, or cutting it, right? That's what One Piece combat always was. It was pretty much just melee combat and fisticuffs. I don't think it's good if the story would have suddenly transitioned into characters fighting with a bunch of weird hacks, JoJo's type abilities, or even, like, really crazy elemental abilities. I like that haki kind of equalizes that, and it's just like, okay, none of that shit really matters. What matters is, like, your melee combat. What can you do with your haki, right? That melee trumps that stuff. For a series like One Piece, I prefer that. In other series, I don't, but One Piece, I feel like that's true to its roots and the type of fighting that we've gotten used to, okay? I still don't like that it's become that simple, though, that it's just like, well, whose haki is greater, and that's who wins a clash. So, I don't know. Anyway. Jordan Duhart, thanks for the 5. Who outside of the active top 10 strongest would get the biggest boost from a Devil Fruit Awakening? My vote is Buggy. We don't know what Awakenings do. I would love to know what Logia Awakenings do. I'd love to know what Logia Awakenings do. I don't even know who's out of the active top 10 strong. Even if we try and guess that's who would everyone agree is, like, part of the top 10 strongest right now, right? Emu, obviously. On the good guys side, you'd obviously have some combination of Dragon, Luffy, Shanks, Mihawk, no ranking, right? I'm just throwing names out here. Then you'd want probably a Kainu. Obviously, no ranking, right? I'm just trying to sort, right? A Kainu, and then I think outside of that group, it's messy, right? Because then it's like, we don't know, like, is Warcury? Where do you scale Warcury? Where do you scale, like, yeah, where do you scale some of those characters, right? Oh, Loki. I think Loki's probably in there, but there's characters that we want more information on, right? Like, is Garling in there or no? Is, like, Garling truly just a fraud? Is Shamrock in there? I think it's really hard, right? So, like, let's say I ignore the Admirals and I ignore all of those guys. So then outside of that, right, then who would really need whose Devil Fruit Awakening would be really good? Maybe something like, I don't know, because we have such a vague understanding. Oh, Blackbeard, I forgot to mention in that group probably. We have such a vague understanding of what Devil Fruit Awakenings look like for Paramecias, and we have no concept for Logias, so I really don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately. Maybe Law's Awakening would be something. No, we've already seen Law's Awakening. It actually wasn't that. I mean, it's really good. I just thought it'd be something even more broken. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know which Fruit Awakening would be the strongest. Hancock maybe or something like that. Like, it's just, what would a Fruit Awakening do for a lot of these characters? We don't know. Kaido, I don't know if we're still counting. I just don't count Kaido and Big Mom just because they're out of commission and ambiguously dead or whatever. Buggy will become Pirate King of Son of Rocks. Maybe. I don't know if Buggy's also the Son of Rock. I don't think he can be, right? He's too young? Or maybe he's just the right age. Who knows? Epicness, thanks for joining the Yonko tier. I really, really appreciate it, man. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, very, very much appreciated, man. Definitely test out those emotes that you just got access to. And you get access to my weekly podcast that comes out every Tuesday along with the video. And obviously all the previous weekly podcasts that have been put out. Hold on a second here. Hold on a second. I have a quick question for y'all. Who has an Instagram? If you have an Instagram here, then I encourage you to do this really quick. Which is... Oh, shit. Oh, man. Can't screen share the right screen. God damn it. All right, go to the... If you want a chance at a free giveaway, just go to our Instagram page, our new Instagram page for One Dream Studio, and you've got a shot at... if you just follow the Instagram, just give it a follow, then you are entered into the giveaway for all the boss posters. All the boss posters that we've been promoting in One Dream Studio. So if you just go there, just give it a follow, you're automatically entered into the giveaway. And this Monday, we're doing the giveaway winner. We're picking the giveaway winner this Monday, so get your follows in now while you've got the chance, because this Monday is when we're doing the giveaway winner. Whoever is picked out of all the Instagram followers will get the entire boss poster collection for free, and you get both rocks and emu included in that. Yeah, so make sure you go do that. And if you just want the posters in general, then just links in the bio. Just go to onedreamstudio.com. Yeah, just go to onedreamstudio.com, and you can get yourself the boss posters. We've got a really good deal right now, buy two, get two. And if you do buy two, get two, then you also get a third poster for free. So it's really 5 posters, which is you get to either pick rocks or emu. So, and those two only last for this month. Rocks and emu are out of production after this month. So if you want to get that deal, then definitely go get that deal now. And at the very least, go give the Instagram a follow so that you're entered into the free giveaway. Buggy wields a Luffy-like power to attract allies, says Elijah Petty. Yeah, he does. He does. It's just in a more silly, comical way. Because here's the thing. I think it's kind of, the way it works is kind of the opposite. Because, like, with Luffy, the way that he attracts allies is usually through people realizing how genuine he is and seeing the genuine substance behind his actions. Like, very often Luffy, like, people will doubt, when Luffy meets new people, they'll doubt him or not really understand him initially, but then they'll see how he acts and they'll see the things that he does, and then they understand what he's truly like, and that draws them to him, right? With Buggy, it's kind of the reverse, because with Buggy, his actual character is very flawed, but Buggy is able to draw allies to him because they incorrectly perceive everything that he does as amazing. Right? So Buggy will do something, and then people will misconstrue it or get the wrong idea or misunderstand what happened, or something lucky will take place, and that makes Buggy look good. So people end up liking Buggy and Luffy for the same reason on the surface, which is that, like, oh my god, we just see the amazing things that they do. But the difference is that people love, like, people are drawn to Luffy because of the actual actions that he's taking. Whereas with Buggy, it's like, it's basically fool's gold, right? It's all a sham, an accidental, unplanned sham in many ways. It's their false perceptions of what's actually happening, the actions that he's actually taking, right? But that is partly why I think Buggy's moment in, what was it, 1082? Wherever he gives the big speech. I think that's, obviously a lot of people would say that's probably Buggy's best moment in the series, because that is the first moment in all of One Piece where everybody rallies around him and is drawn to him because of something that he genuinely is doing from the bottom of his heart. Like, that is the first moment where it's not him feeding them a lie or something lucky falling in his lap that makes him look good or them misunderstanding some action of his to be better than it is. That's the first moment that Buggy himself is, his authentic self is stepping up and people are rallying around him for an action that he genuinely is doing from the bottom of his heart, which is declaring that we're all going to go after the One Piece. I think that makes for a really, really cool moment. Yeah. Sifa238. Teach will kill Shanks the same way Garling killed Zebek. Teach will kill Shanks the same way Garling will kill Zebek. Yeah, I think that that's very possible. Somebody brought that up earlier in this stream that, you know, Blackbeard obviously, like, Shanks' father killed Blackbeard's father, so we will see the reverse happen in the next generation where Blackbeard will get to kill Shanks. Jersey is fire, bro. I'm glad to see that people really like the jersey because people have been so excited about the jersey. We might have something for you all come this Christmas, come this holiday season. We might have something for you all, so just watch out for that. If you're interested in that, then definitely go just follow the Instagram because we got a lot cooking for y'all. We got a lot cooking. Go follow the Instagram. At the moment, that gets you in line for the giveaway for the boss posters. And if you just want to get the boss posters for yourself, we've got a crazy good deal going right now. Buy two, get three, really. So it's buy two, get two. But then also, you get to pick the Rocks or Emu poster. So it's really buy two, get three. And Rocks and Emu are exclusive. They're not coming back after this month. So definitely get that deal now if you can. Elijah says, is the Thriller Bark God Valley Remnant theory over? I mean, I think it is, but like maybe Moria fucking fishes it out of the ground or something. I don't know. I never really bought into that one that much. Because I always thought that God Valley probably was actually destroyed. But yeah, maybe something happens. I think the other part of what kills that theory is that, like, I think a driving force for that theory was that, well, there's so many Rocks pirate corpses on Thriller Bark. But the tricky thing is that now we realize that none of the Rocks pirates actually died at God Valley except for Rocks himself. So it's not like Moria just found that island and then, like, resurrected all of those corpses. All the Rocks pirates, generally speaking, went different ways. So Moria had to track down those corpses and then do his shenanigans to them. So I think that hurts the Thriller Bark theory. But I mean, maybe it's real. Musa.co, thanks a lot. Some reaction on Rocks' end makes me realize how people are not able to separate feeling bad for Rocks and it being bad writing. Somebody going out unceremoniously, almost pathetic, is not bad writing. I'm glad that you said that. It's so one of the reasons that people could feel that is because with One Piece, what we've become accustomed to is that Oda writes a really brilliant scene for somebody's end. Like, for so many characters, their most memorable moment is their death, right? With Rocks, his death, the way that he goes out, it's almost embarrassing. And it's almost like you don't want to remember that's not how you want to remember him, right? It's the opposite, right? For so many of these other characters, you want to remember Odin as that guy that was boiling in the pot, right? You want to remember Whitebeard dying standing, right? You want to remember Hiruluk with his famous final words, right? Oda went the opposite route for Rocks. That's what's standing out. I think that's something that not a lot of people are able to articulate or put their finger on with why something feels like it's missing. But that's the reality. Oda's conditioned us over hundreds, thousands of chapters to teach us that in One Piece, death is, for these type of characters, these flashback figures, these great figures, death is supposed to be this beautiful thing. Tragic, but beautiful, right? With Rocks, Oda robs us of that, and there's so much reasoning behind why that is that I'm saving for next Tuesday's video. Next Tuesday's video is a great breakdown of Rocks' character, I believe. I think it would address a lot of what you're feeling right there. But that is the crux of it. That's what feels so different about Rocks. We are used to One Piece giving us something really beautiful at the end for these characters, not for Rocks. Oda does not do that for this character and for only this character, and that is entirely the point of his story. So watch out for next Tuesday's video. With that, I am going to end the stream, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, and with that, I will talk to you all later. JP, I'll just answer this real quick. Feels extra tragic that Roger's crew were able to rescue him. It almost felt like Rocks could have lived if Whitebeard came to carry him back. Yeah, man. Again, that stuff also goes into next Tuesday's video. It is fucking sad. It is... Whitebeard would have fucking sent Garling and them packing. Like, I don't know. All right. Thank you, everybody, for the support. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. And with that...